Can you introduce first yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name is Adeo Ressi. I'm the CEO of the Founder Institut. The Founder Institute has one of our chapters in Zagreb. We have 35 chapters all around the world in various cities in 5 continents. I'm also the CEO of TheFunded, which is the largest community of funded CEOs to discuss their experiences with venture capitalists. So I do a lot of work within the entrepreneurial ecosystem. The Founder Institute's my 8th company. TheFunded is my 7th company.
Great. So you were lately in Zagreb, and I read some good news about your visits. So can you tell us something about it?
I was recently in Zagreb for about 18 hours. That's about as long as I spend in any one city when I travel. It was great. I really enjoyed meeting the founders. We have just over 15 enrolled founders in the program, and they have a wide range of ideas. I would say the founders in Zagreb had some of the more original ideas that I saw when traveling throughout Europe. My last trip, I hit 6 different cities where we have chapters, and I met many founders in our program and other founders from the regions as I traveled. And I would say the founders in Zagreb, again, had some of the most original ideas that I've seen in a long time. An example is there's a submarine company in Zagreb, which I found very unique. You don't see many of those, but that's just one example. There are quite a few unique ideas.
So what do you think about the startup scene in Croatia and in United States? What is different?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of differences between the United States startup scene and the Croatian startup scene. So it might be a better comparison to draw between Europe, which is the neighbor of Croatia right now. I would say that Croatia is a very small country. So as a result, it has a relatively small entrepreneurial scene. The good news is that for a country of its size, Croatia has a number of very good mentors. And I would say one of the most important things for a good startup ecosystem is to have good mentors. So from that perspective, Croatia is in a very strong position. I mean, you can go to other countries in Europe and you struggle to find mentors. Even larger countries like Switzerland or to Belgium, they're larger in terms of population, a little more economically advanced, and they don't have enough mentors to build a good Founder Institute program. Though we managed to pull it off in Belgium, it's still pretty tough. So Croatia has some good mentors, it has passionate people, and that's really the foundation to a good startup ecosystem, but it's still small nonetheless. Whereas, to compare it to America, America is a very big market, and there's tens of thousands of entrepreneurs, so almost anywhere it's easy to build a chapter. There's a lot of good mentors, etc.
So do you think that Croatian startups can build the company in United States or some countries in Europe?
Here's what I would say. Like, you need to, since the market of Croatia is so small, any company starting in Croatia is going to need to think about a global market from day one. You just can't get enough people using your product in Croatia itself to build a business. So you're going to have to think about Europe, multiple languages, etc., just to get enough users to make anything meaningful. So that can be an advantage. Now, some of the great companies of our time have come from smaller countries. Skype, which we're using right now, or potentially if you look at Nokia. So there's a lot of great technology companies have been born in small countries, and that sort of birth in a small country has forced them to expand, and by expanding they've become very successful. So I think there's every company in Croatia will need to think about expansion, and that is a good thing.
Is this what the Founder Institute is trying to do?
Well, I don't know if we're trying to do it. That's the right thing to do. So these founders must think internationally, and we encourage them to think internationally. But there's no other choice, right? They must think internationally. So if we help them to think internationally, that's because it's the right thing to do, not because we have some implicit objective. In the United States, we oftentimes don't encourage people to think internationally because the home market is big enough. In Indonesia, it's the same thing. We don't push people to think internationally because the home market is big enough. Whereas in Singapore or Croatia or Belgium, you have to think internationally. So the fact that we are an international organization is definitely helpful for the founders in Croatia, because they'll meet CEOs from different regions around the world who will give them a perspective on how to build the business internationally.
So now your favorite questions. What can you say about advices for startups? How the entrepreneurs can build company from scratch and go internationally?
Well, I'm going to close the door here as there's a phone ringing out there. My advice to entrepreneurs, why don't we make it more specific, and I'll give my advice to Croatian entrepreneurs, because every entrepreneur is a little bit different, and there are some cultural differences, and there's some very clear cultural differences in Croatia. So probably the most important thing that I noticed when I was in Croatia was that the founders there did not properly research the market opportunity. And so let me explain this. There's a lot of thinking about this. This is one of the most common problems that entrepreneurs have. So a lot of times an entrepreneur can come up with a model for the world in their head, right? And they say, okay, here's a problem that I think exists, and it's a problem that I think needs to be solved. But in fact, it's not. And then when they go out and they talk to people, people are like, yeah, that is a problem. I could use your software. You could help me out. The problem, of course, is that that sounds great on paper. In fact, a lot of times those problems don't really exist. And so these founders spend months and years of their life building stuff, and then nobody buys it, or nobody uses it, or nobody wants it, and nobody cares. And so what I would say, I noticed a lot of Croatian founders had problems that they invented in their mind that they felt were really important and they were trying to solve. And I'm not sure that those problems really existed. So I'll give you, I really enjoyed the underwater exploration company from Croatia, but they didn't really have a market, right? And the founder didn't do a lot of research on who would buy it. He was saying things like, oh, anyone with a boat or anyone that needs to look underwater. Well, that's not what I would call thorough market research and a good understanding of a problem that you're trying to solve. Like, just because I can build a gyrocopter that can fly upside down doesn't mean that anybody wants a gyrocopter that can fly upside down, right? So just because you can build something, or make a website that shows pictures of snakes doesn't mean that people want a website that shows. So I think in Croatia in particular, founders need to be very diligent and research what they're working on, go speak with customers, talk with potential users, and really, really address a need and a pain that exists in the world, not a need and pain that exists in their mind, right?
Yeah, I have one story about Dietrich Mateschitz. You know who is Dietrich Mateschitz? Red Bull founder. So
Okay,
he did market research, and their company said that he never can sell these things, that the name is stupid, that brand logo is stupid, and they fire it. And then he built company Red Bull, so energy drink.
Yeah, but I mean that's
It's
not
one of
that's
a million, but
so you can there's a difference between that type of market research and the type of market research that I'm talking about. Red Bull, like as a brand and stuff like that, that's very structured research with consumers and things like this, and the world knows that is mixed data. What I'm talking about is much more like basic, like, hey, take a look at a site. I'm building a site for conference organizers. I should probably speak with 50 to 100 separate conference organizers before I go build it, right? If I'm not one. And if I am one, I should do it as well, right?
and what if
In
somebody
fact, I would
steals your
recommend that
idea?
you are a conference organizer before you start building a site for conference organizers. But what happens a lot of times is, people don't go out and speak with people who are eventually going to use the product, and as a result, no one does. No one uses it.
And what if somebody steals your idea in the meantime when you're showing your product to potential customers?
Well, no one ever steals any ideas, right? I've never seen. I mean, in out of the 2,000 or 3,000 startups that have come through the Founder Institute, and a few hundred have graduated, I've maybe heard of once when someone thought their idea was stolen, and I suspect that was just not true. So I think they were a little paranoid. No one, ideas are too easy to come up with, and they're nothing original. I've never seen an original idea, ever, because they're trends, right? So your idea fits within a matrix of what's possible. Like, you're not working on, space station air purification for 30-year journeys, because there are no 30-year journeys in space right now. There's 10-day journeys. So no one's working on a problem that doesn't exist, or the technology doesn't exist to make the solution possible. So the reality is most people work in the realm of what's possible, and there's only a finite number of areas. So, I hear the same idea over and over and over and over again when I travel around the world. What's different is, how they tackle it. There's probably, somewhere around 5,000 to 10,000 crowdfunding ideas right now. There's another, few thousand eating-related food ideas. So dinner with friends while traveling. There's a few thousand traveling ideas. There's a few thousand conference ideas. And all these ideas, you get the same ones at the same time, because the component technologies to solve problems have come together. So, you can do new stuff at events because you have NFC, you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook, so it can make a real world event more rich. So you're seeing tons of real world event ideas all around the world. But yeah, so I would not worry at all about your idea being stolen. In fact, I'm willing to bet that I probably heard your idea 10 times in the last week.
Okay, and last question. You have unsuccessful companies, few of them. How many?
Yeah, about 10% of the companies in the Founder Institute that graduate fail.
Okay, and what did you learn from these mistakes? Do you have one?
My unsuccessful companies or one the Founder Institute? Yeah, I mean, I really haven't. I've only had 2 unsuccessful companies-ish. One is Sophos Partners, which is still around, but it just wasn't very successful. And the second one was something called e-business that we closed down. I don't know. I didn't learn that much from the failure, honestly. Failure is easy. Well, it doesn't work, shut it down. Okay. I would say failure is very easy, and I don't know if there are a lot of lessons. If something's not working, you shut it down, and then you move on, right? And so what is the lesson that you learn from that? Yeah, shut it down and move on. All my lessons are learned from success, right? Because you don't get to success. I mean, and maybe this is probably the lesson here. Like a lot of people, there's a cult of failure right now. And I understand because a lot of countries and cultures feel that failure is bad. In fact, failure is not bad, but I think we've sort of, the pendulum has swung too far the other way. So now people are like, failure's great. No, failure's not great. Failure's failure. It sucks, and you shouldn't fail. So as a smart and successful individual, you should aspire not to fail at all. And let me add some more subtlety to that. So what I specifically do to build my businesses is I try and figure out where the catastrophic failure point is. And then I move right before that, and that's where I try to grow to. So I try to actually fail. But under controlled circumstances whereby I learn from the mistakes and correct. So there's a point that you can go, which would be catastrophic failure. So if if you run too far, your knees will fall down and you'll not be able to run anymore. So you want to get right to the edge of what you can do, and then you'll fail, you'll have problems. You learn from that, you fix the organization, and then you push to the next milestone. So, within achieving success, I think there are things that you can do that are failure-oriented, but failure itself is not an option.
So thank you, Adeo, and I hope you see you somewhere around. Do you coming to Croatia again? Or
in Zagreb again before too long.
Great. So thank you for this interview, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.